Hope you guys enjoyed the weekend. I thought it was another great weekend in the NFL, even though my Saints literally handed the win to Tom Brady yesterday. I'm trying not to overreact at this point. It's early in the season. I'm trying to give Jameis Winston the benefit of the doubt. I know his back is banged up, he's injured, but there's just no excuse for this offense in New Orleans to be struggling as bad as it is right now. Outside of that fourth quarter against Atlanta, you can make the case that the Saints have one of the worst offenses in the league. I noticed something yesterday that I didn't pick up on last Sunday. It's only week 2, going into week 3. And Fox is already desperately missing Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. Tampa and New Orleans, that was the game of the week this week on Fox. The broadcast, it just didn't have the same feel to it, that big game feel. Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olsen, that is just not a lead broadcast crew in my opinion. When I hear Nance and Romo on CBS, it has the feel of a big game. Same with Joe Buck, Troy Aikman. Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olsen, I don't know. I was not feeling that broadcast crew on Fox. Now, it was a relatively quiet weekend in college football, nothing but blowouts across the board. The biggest news coming out of college football this past weekend took place in Eugene, Oregon on Saturday afternoon. I almost came on here yesterday to talk about this, but I wanted to give this story another day or so. I wanted to give the mainstream media a fair chance. Now, I know the mainstream media doesn't give that same luxury to us normal people, but I wanted to give them time to see if they would do the right thing. But here we are, 48 hours later. Imagine my surprise when the mainstream media is still ignoring this story. They are pretending this never happened. Nothing to see here. Can someone please create a story of mythical racism to distract cisgendered birthing persons from defending these Mormons? For 2 or 3 weeks, the media focused on the fabricated story of mythical racism at BYU. They had no proof. They had no evidence. These so-called journalists, they were relying on the words of Beetlejuice, an aspiring politician, and a 19-year-old kid with zero credibility. Mythical racism at BYU, it trumped coverage on remembering 9/11. Rachel Richardson was given free airtime on ESPN. Please love me, America. I am a victim. Prove my godmother Beetlejuice wrong. Prove to us that you are not guilty of mythical racism. For 2 or 3 weeks, that's all the mainstream media wanted to talk about. This poor child, all she wants to do is play volleyball. This sport is already triggering enough. The ball is white. Why can't the volleyball be black? Not only is she playing in a whitewashed sport with white balls, she is now hearing voices in her head calling her offensive slurs. Oh, lift this child up in prayer to the woke oak tree. Heal her non-existent wounds. Not only did the mainstream media try their damnedest to convince us to feel sorry for Rachel Richardson and her godmother, who closely resembles a disfigured alien, but once the story was proven to be nothing but a shit sandwich by the police, BYU, and anyone else with a functioning frontal cortex, the media pretended this whole Rachel Richardson saga never happened. Have you guys noticed these last couple of weeks, we have heard nothing further about Rachel Richardson? Did you notice that? I have not seen the first retraction in the Salt Lake Tribune or the Washington Post. I'm still waiting on Mike Freeman at USA Today, also known as the Star Trek virgin. I am still waiting on him to admit that he was wrong. At the height of this fabricated bullshit, Mike Freeman claimed that if this was indeed a case of mythical racism, he would be the first in line to admit that he was wrong about it. Hey, shit fuck, I'm still waiting. Casey, I apologize for this oversight. I have spent the last 2 weeks in recovery. Brian Stelter ferociously pounded my bongo. Not only did my wounded bongo require stitches, it also got infected from overusing Preparation H. If we had an honest media, Rachel Richardson would be criticized. She had someone who's already suffering from a mental disorder. She had him banned from all BYU athletic events. Hell, I guess there is 2 people suffering from a mental disorder in this situation. Clearly, Rachel Richardson's hearing voices in her head and thinking it's reality. An honest media would call her on her bullshit. But we don't have an honest media in this country. The lack of media coverage of what happened in Oregon over this past weekend further proves that point. BYU traveled to Oregon this weekend in what was supposed to be one of the bigger games on the college football schedule for the weekend. But with this being college football, it was just another disappointment. As you guys know, Oregon is one of the wokest states in America. A beautiful state, littered with bums living on the sidewalks in cardboard boxes. If I remember correctly, Portland was one of the first cities in the country to properly defund the police. Oh, what a great idea that was. How's that working out for you, Portland? If you're the victim of a crime in Oregon, you don't call the police since, they don't exist. So who do you call? You call woke busters. Thank you for calling woke busters. It's a great day in the land of gay. What is your emergency? Oh, please help me. This birthing person with a cucumber attached to his forehead is trying to attack me. Please send help. Ooh, you are so lucky. Before we get started, what are your proper pronouns? Fuck a pronoun. This fuck is trying to hurt me. What do I do? Have no fear, it's okay. He's not trying to harm you. He just wants to enter your promised land. I suggest you bend over and let him lesion your nether region. Hope you enjoy. Goodbye. During the BYU Oregon game on Saturday, a familiar chant broke out in the student section. Pound my bongo! No, I'm just kidding. Although I'm sure that chant broke out at some point. There were plenty of lonely dudes at the game displaying their woke mating call. After their mating calls were fulfilled, Oregon students, they began yelling another chant directed at BYU. Watch for yourself.
Fuck the Mormons! Fuck the Mormons!
Now, to be fair, there was only a small group in the student section that participated in this bullshit. This was not 70,000 people disrespecting BYU and the Mormon religion. The chant lasted, for about 7 seconds, and it sounded to me like it was maybe 20 or 30 people. To Oregon's credit, the Twitter account associated with the student section, it issued an immediate apology. There was no investigation needed. We had audio and video evidence that this happened. Now, when Rachel Richardson fabricated her story of mythical racism and the mainstream media ran with it faster than Brian Stelter runs to a Dunkin' Donuts, her fairy tale only involved one person in her head yelling slurs directed at her. One. Uno. Unico. There was no evidence to back up her claim. There wasn't another player on the Duke bench that supported her bullshit. There wasn't a single person inside that arena that could substantiate her fairy tale. Yet, the mainstream media promoted the story anyway. For the last 2 years, all we have heard about is diversity, equity, and inclusion. All we've heard about is the fight to end mythical racism, the fight to end discrimination. Here, we have a clear case of religious discrimination, but it's strange. Here we are 48 hours later, and the mainstream media continues ignoring this story. Now, I'll give credit to the Washington Post and NBC News. Both of those outlets picked up the story. But where is the New York Times? Where is the Salt Lake Tribune? Hell, where the fuck is ESPN? ESPN's the home of mythical racism. The network is dedicated in their quest to promote myths and fantasies to their audience. Just 2 years ago, ESPN produced a 2-hour special on mythical racism in America. They would not allow Sage Steele to participate because Ryan Clark was offended when she called him a beta male. Remember the documentary ESPN did on Bubba Wallace? You guys remember that? A year after his story of mythical racism was proven false by the fucking FBI, ESPN created this dramatic work of fiction, completely victimizing Bubba Wallace. Oh, how tough it must be to be a black man in NASCAR. Every time he sees a rope, it reminds him of his youth growing up with a white father who owned a fucking business. Oh, tough childhood, tough NASCAR career. This man's clearly a victim of something. Like I said earlier, they interviewed Rachel Richardson on Outside the Lines and never once pushed her on the possibility that she could be full of shit. Rachel, are you sure this voice was real, or was it one of the many voices in your head? Never once did they ask that question. But when it comes to a case of real discrimination in Oregon, ESPN has the right to remain silent. I don't understand it. I don't get it. In that clip I showed you, I did not see one black person chanting at BYU. It was a clip full of evil white kids. That right there checks a woke box, evil white perpetrators. Unfortunately, that is the only woke box this incident checks. The most important box remains unchecked. The victims in this situation don't fall into a marginalized group. You see, this story doesn't fit the media narrative. This is a case of white-on-white crime. Like I told you guys last week, white-on-white crime is permitted under the woke commandments. The mainstream media ignores this story because the Mormon faith is being targeted. Mormons are associated with Christianity, which is public enemy number one for members of Woke United Methodist. The mainstream media, they cannot come out publicly and defend their fellow butt brigaders in Oregon. The backlash would be too severe. So, what do? They do the next best thing. They pretend this never happened. As of the time of this recording, which is around about 10:30 Central Time on Monday morning, the only mainstream outlets that have picked up this story are Fox News, Outkick, NBC News, and the Washington Post. Salt Lake Tribune, who broke the story on Rachel Richardson, BYU is in their fucking backyard. They're silent. Where is Mike Freeman at USA Today? I know he's recovering from rectum rage. Does that mean he is unable to type out a story of real discrimination? I thought CNN was moving in a new direction. I thought CNN was covering hard news. I haven't seen anything from the new and improved CNN. This is what state-run media looks like. This is why they are trying to silence anyone who speaks the truth. They only want us hearing stories that fit their narrative. Anything else is unimportant. It only impedes what they call progress. We are the progressive movement. Yeah. The only thing they're progressing is their personal bank account, while the rest of us struggle to survive in their utopia. But let me know what you guys think. Discriminatory behavior over the weekend in Oregon, completely ignored by the mainstream media. Are you surprised? Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys later.